Hello from San Diego. This is Ed, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. I'm going to have an international conversation and starting in a few minutes. It's going to be led by a good friend and quite a guy, Joseph McGuire. He's a human face facts, facial recognition expert. I'm going to read this, which he gave me. In times of division, create a golden bridge. This is Joseph, not me. But I believe this too. But he's the author, the creator, and he's going to do a deep dive with us. He says, have you ever witnessed a heated discussion where two people both convinced that they're right stop listening to each other? Tensions. Voices rise. Interruptions sharpen. The focus shifts from ideas or collaboration, understanding, to winning. What happens next? We'll be right back with our show. Get ready. Thank you. This is Ed. I'm in San Diego, and as you can see, there's sunshine on my face. Actually, there's new studio lighting here, and I'm trying to get used to it. And thank you for being on Global TV. As you can see, the Blue Ocean strategy today. We want to be healthy and wealthy and happy and learn from Joseph McGuire about face facts. And what would you call the theme here, Joseph, of your talk? Keeping a lid on, keeping understanding flowing rather than uncivil discourse.
Yeah, well, I know this arose from a recent LinkedIn post of mine, and part of the theme was building a golden bridge.
Golden Bridge. And that means psychologically safe environment.
Essentially, yes, it stems from the ancient Chinese classic, The Art of War by Sun Tzu,
Uh,
and the sentence goes something along the lines of always give your enemy a golden bridge on which to retreat.
that takes a lot of practice
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
because people, I know, just myself, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I got into a heated exchange, but it really wasn't heated. It was just sharp, and it didn't have to be. Looking at it 5 minutes later, it felt really bad.
I'm sure we've all been there on multiple occasions.
Yeah. So, Joseph, do you have any slides you want to show?
I just have two slides, but I thought I might just talk a little.
Okay, great.
And if I become too boring or simply don't make sense, do feel free to interrupt at any point. I've been well accustomed to that from my children over the years.
Great,
Uh,
great.
but yeah, I just thought to talk along the lines of just using that basic theme of Golden Bridge and backtracking, and just touching a little bit on my own personal history. Um, and I found this book. I don't know if you can see it on camera there.
Not really, no.
Okay. It's a book called Michael Collins and the Irish Revolution. And I asked for and received that for my ninth birthday, which is not the sort of thing you would typically expect a 9-year-old to be reading. But I was born in 1957, and in 1966 they had the 50th anniversary celebration of the Irish Easter Revolution from Easter 1916. And many of the people who had been involved in that were still alive and were still being celebrated. One of them was actually our president at the time. And I grew up in an environment where I was made very much aware that we had been a colonized nation and we had suffered many injustices and deep cruelties, etc., over several centuries. And I never heard any of that from my parents, but it was simply in the air. We were taught it in school, etc. And I grew up with a burning sense of injustice. And I was never particularly, I was never an aggressive type, but I certainly had a wellspring of anger in there. And any injustice I came across or read about, and I was a voracious reader of history, really touched me very deeply. And that's why when I left Ireland, I went to Israel because I've read so much about the history of the formation of Israel. I read about the Holocaust, and that touched me so, so deeply. And again, whether it inspired me or inflamed me or both, it certainly galvanized me. And I was again just so attuned to injustice and probably far more attuned to injustice than I needed to be and less attuned to goodness and kindness. It wasn't that I wasn't demonstrating some goodness and kindness, but I was always ready to respond to what I saw as injustice. And I was never actually physically in a fight, but I had a very sharp tongue and I was well able to lacerate people with my tongue. And because I was the height I am now, I was that height from the age of about 13 or 14. So I'm just under 6 foot tall. And I could give people a message of don't mess with me. And I I've been told I carried an aura of menace at times. And like I said, I was never physically in a fight, but people got that message from me. If they did anything to me, they would deeply regret it. And that was without me actually saying anything. And it took me many years to evolve from that place of seeing the world as a place of injustice and seeing the world as a place of cruelty, because that was automatically what I tuned into. And it wasn't really until many years later and meeting people from so many different cultures and particularly being introduced to Eastern philosophy, Zen and Taoism in particular, and aspects of Buddhism, that things started to soften. And I started to cultivate some quality of peace within. And one of the, this may sound a little bit out there, but I, when I was working as a therapist, I had to cultivate a greater sense of peace because I would had to take care of people. I had to help people through their pain and their trauma. And in some cases, some people, in fact, in many cases, people had been very severely traumatized from, in some cases, from birth on. And I had to develop much more, a much deeper sense of compassion and empathy. And I had to demonstrate it through my behavior. And that softened me. Um, and as a consequence of that, or as a part of the flow, the development of that, I had an experience which has stayed with me, and this is going back 20 odd years now. I, I've studied a lot of spiritual traditions. I've done a lot of spiritual training, workshops, etc. over the years. Um, and I know people who specialize in interpreting dreams. Some of them are Jungian psychologists, etc., and some of them are more, shall we say, out there. And I never paid much attention to dreams. But I had a dream one night when I was actually doing a training, and I had I'd read a lot over the years, and I'd studied many different cultures and many different mythologies, and I was aware that in pretty much every mythology there are particular symbols, and in Irish mythology there are there are symbols like weapons. There's a magical sword, there's a magical spear, there's magical armor. And in this dream, I was the leader of a band of warriors, and we were facing our enemies, and we were on a promontory of land which was very narrow. And the only way back was literally to go off the edge of a cliff. And our enemies were numerous. They were right in front of us. And I happened in the dream, I had all of these special weapons and armor. And it was very clear that by using them, I could obliterate my enemies. And my people in the dream were urging me to do that. But something in the dream told me not to, and to actually put down the weapons, put down the armor, and literally to go into a space of love, and literally to walk into my enemies and let them devour me. And it was so powerful. I woke up with it, and it has stayed with me since then. And I have stayed in that place of peace, and I've more and more cultivated a greater sense of peace in from the inside out, and to share and to transmit through my being as much as through my work. And it as part of my growth, I was still in that place of if something if injustice presented itself, I was still likely to let fly verbally until I read something. And that was about um, discord and disagreement. And our natural, perhaps, or certainly default tendency, or certainly the default tendency for many of us is when we find somebody who disagrees with us, we look to convince them, or we engage in an argument. And the penny finally dropped when I read this particular article. It said, if you want to create a bridge with people where there is discord, you have to be curious and you have to be willing to listen. But you have to listen with genuine curiosity. You have to demonstrate it through your facial expression, your body language, your being, that you're really present and you are genuinely listening. You are genuinely interested. And only when you have properly listened do you start to talk from your perspective. And even then, it's only like, yeah, that's really interesting. Have you ever thought of that you're not actively seeking to convince or persuade anybody? You're looking to engage their curiosity. And that has further deepened my sense of inner peace, but also my sense of willingness to engage and to not take sides. And I was so often primed to take sides. And with all the conflict that we're seeing, conflict and division we're seeing in the world today, I am not interested in sides. I'm only interested in creating, or as far as I can, creating a bridge or presenting a bridge. And I'll just show two particular slides, if I may, Ed.
Yeah, before you get into that, let me ask you a question about the what you had talked about earlier a few minutes ago, of having this dream, ongoing dream, perhaps over time. How long did it take you to develop an understanding of what you were dreaming and building up your uh, body armor, mental armor, and finding a pathway, as you just described, to shift energy towards curiosity?
Yeah, there's several aspects to that. It's a great question, Ed. Thank you. I would say I understood it immediately because it reminded me of something I'd known deeply, but to live it was a whole other thing. There's what we know and there's what we allow ourselves to know. And it was very much a case of taking off the armor rather than developing mental or emotional or spiritual armor. It was very much a case of removing it. And that has been an ongoing process. of removing the armor so that there is nothing for anybody to attack. And that can seem counterintuitive in today's world. But the second slide I'm going to show you in a moment is will expand on that a little further.
So
But
on this beautiful slide here, it's really when you shared it with me the other day, um, it was like, whoa, what am I looking at here?
yeah,
And this is really powerful.
yeah, it's in the province of Da Nang in Vietnam, and obviously Vietnam and Da Nang will resonate strongly with the American psyche for all
Mm,
that happened there.
yeah.
But it's such a beautiful, such a powerful symbol of support, a golden bridge of creating a space for people to cross and meet each other. And it's such a powerful symbol for me. I use it a lot anyway, but I have it internally. I have it internally as a reminder. And it's not that my buttons can't be pressed, but when they are, rather than allowing myself to be triggered, I bring that to mind, the golden bridge, so that it's not that I assume I'm going to get on well with everybody. That probably isn't realistic. But at the very least, I'm not going to get sucked into disagreement and discord and either being annoyed and upset with them or facilitating them being annoyed and upset with me. Rather, if we don't agree, at least depart from each other gracefully. So the second slide is from the practice of Aikido. And that was something I practiced for quite some time when I lived in London. And Aikido it's understood to mean the way of harmonizing the spirit or something along those lines. And it's we often think, and obviously that image is quite dramatic, but we often think of martial arts as being aggressive and about this particular strike or this kind of blow. But Aikido is very much about it is very much a spiritual discipline as much as anything else. And it's never about initiating aggression. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's about being very centered within oneself. And there are two basic points then just to make before I stop the share. Number one, part of the original idea behind martial arts was to make oneself so strong internally, but not just physically strong, mentally strong, intuitively strong, so that one intuitively knows where not to be, so that one is not placing oneself in a place of aggression or trouble or strife. And the second point then is with Aikido in particular, if it happens that one is attacked, we use our aggressor's energy to disarm them. We're not looking to cause them damage. And if it comes to, I'm not naive enough to think that trouble may not happen. But if it should happen, I'm not concerned with winning in terms of defeating somebody. What I am concerned about is winning the peace, creating peace and winning the peace so that we create some kind of lasting dimension to that rather than creating resentment or stimulating resentment in anybody so that there's a legacy of that which may often come back to bite us.
Let's go back to the first slide. Um, from it'd be great if you could put it back up, but
Yep.
what
Just bear with
uh,
me.
now was that bridge bombed during the Vietnam War? Has
It
it been
wasn't
rebuilt?
it didn't exist at the time, Ed.
Ah, okay.
That came sometime later.
And was it put there by the North Vietnamese or the South Vietnamese?
Well, there are just the Vietnamese at this point.
Right. But at that time,
No, this came after the US had exited.
yeah. And then, I mean, suddenly it seems like the Vietnamese are best friends. and a place for economic development thriving.
Yeah.
And so why was there a war? I mean, this is really a mistake. Um, and
Well,
I don't want to rehearse all that. I was a medic during the time, and in the US in a thoracic surgical unit, I was trained as a OR tech, um, which morphed into being a people manager rather than a scrub.
yeah, well, you have to go back into history and look at reasons and reasons behind reasons. But the French were obviously in there first,
Mm,
and then they were defeated at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. And so as they exited, the US came in and things escalated.
yeah, just misguided. Okay, so the hands are what to you?
The hands to me are a symbol of support and encouragement. And the
And
fact that the hands
yeah,
are open like that, like in body language terms, if we meet each other with our hands open, it signifies we are not carrying a weapon. We are not a threat.
and they're holding up what looks to be a scary thing, but it's actually probably very, very safe and beautiful looking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's obviously structurally very, very sound indeed.
Carolina, please comment.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate this environment. Edwin, always a transformation for me after listening to each one of you. Um, Joseph, your deep and honest and so profound story and your transformation in life is very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that um, each one of us here that is serving a higher purpose and being here to share from your stories and your life, you have no idea how this impacts other people. So thank you so much to each one of you here. And I just want to say that coming from this area that I work, that is helping people to communicate, learn languages, being myself a big fan of understanding how other people communicates and to be able to connect with each other, right? I found that it was very, very important in the first place for myself to see the filters that I had, like that maybe people taught me, maybe my culture, that I absorb filters that sometimes didn't let me see how other people was feeling or trying to communicate or trying to connect with me. So I think it's something that really is a passion for me to be able in the classes with my mentees, with people that I work, to be able to talk about these and just exchange ideas to see how we can learn to put down these filters, put down the judgment, and learn many things that we absorb from our culture naturally at school, right? We just learn one way to communicate. And we are so diverse in the world, like nature, so many species, so many forms and shapes. Same with us, with humans. So in the moment that I learn how to put these filters down, and I still working on that. It's not easy. I think it makes more natural, the connection with anybody in any place in the world. So I really appreciate Joseph, this inspiring message, and thank you so much.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Ken.
As always, Joseph, just brilliant and moving words. I think that the fact that in your youth you were more, if you will, aggressive without getting into physical conflicts with people. I think the fact that you then learn from that and experience what it's like to have a wall instead of a bridge has really made the bridge building and the bridges that you keep in your mind and your behavior that much more compelling, as opposed to you've always been this way. You really know what it is and experience what it is to be on the other side of this. And I think that's made you all the more open and receptive and understanding of others. I love this graphic. See, I look at the hands. I agree with you. They're hands of support, but it's almost like it's imploring us, right? Please, gently, let's do this. Let's build together. So it's not like the hands are gripping this bridge and holding it. They're almost begging us. Let's have peace. Can't we get along? And just to go on another point that you made, I happen to be a great believer in the power of dreams. And I think we learn so much about ourselves and others. And this is something I grew up with in a family where my mom was, I won't say clairvoyant, but she did things way beyond the expected. And she knew things because she was very sensitive to the world. And we learned about dreams from her. So I'll give you one very fast story. I have a granddaughter who's 11 months old now, a doll. And before she was born, my daughter and her husband did not want to know if this is going to be a little boy or a little girl. And let's wait till the delivery. 3 months before this beautiful child was born, I met her in a dream, 100%. And I said to my daughter afterwards, I just met your daughter, and she's wonderful, and she's a sweetheart. And there was no doubt in my mind. And in this dream, I'm holding this baby, and she's pointing at the stars in the sky. And here she is now at 11 months old, 100% as I imagined her. And we have a number of lithos in our house. There's one of a star. She loves it. And I'll hold her, and she's always pointing to it, just as she did out of that dream. Dreams have guided me in many ways. I certainly believe in them. And Joseph, that dream you had that changed your life, and leaves a visual message for us. It wasn't something, be kind to people, be open, receptive. The visual, this concept of a bridge is just a wonderful way to get the message to people to really impact their behavior. So I think it's absolutely terrific. And it's funny, even on Zoom, you project an aura of kindness and goodness and openness and a real genuine interest in what others are saying and active listening, and not the buzzword active listening, but real listening to others. It just comes across that way, and it's amazing. I imagine those who work in person with you sense it even more, but it's very clear in any engagement that we've had through Ed's meetings that that's the kind of person that you are, and it's received by us in everything that you say and do.
Wow, this is a great session. Joseph.
Yeah, I'm so fortunate to be here. Firstly, thanks to you, Ed, that not only for today, but for inviting me back so frequently, because I don't know if you realize the talent you have for bringing such wonderful people together and for allowing conversations to flow and allowing conversations to really open. Some moderators keep things very constrained, but you allow things to flow and develop and to take on a life of their own, but they're invariably so positive and so constructive. And I've learned so much from people here, from Ken on so many occasions. I've only met Carolina a number of times, but each time we've met, I've been very, very touched and very uplifted by each of our encounters. And you, Ed, you facilitate these conversations so beautifully. And I just want to particularly acknowledge your gift for bringing all of this together.
Well, thank you for that. I'm really honored. I love doing this. Yeah, it's work, but I can't even think of it as work. It's just, I'm just loving the interchange and the ability to have you across the world, across time and space, you know. And one day we're going to meet in person. I know that.
Look forward to that, Ed.
I know. That'll be great. So we got around 10, 12 minutes. This could go on for hours, I'm sure, but maybe we can come back and do it again. Ken, what are you working on that you can share that you should use this occasion to talk about your business?
Oh, that's very nice. Basically, still doing work related to the book that came out in December, Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies. Doing work with the various individuals actually on that as a real focus in terms of continuous feedback, providing actual two-way communication, working with others to build their skills, their development, their growth, their career plans, doing more on the career coaching side, while working on another book that I'll submit at some point on clearing out a lot of the, if you will, clutter in our brains that are interfering with our ability to really make effective decisions. There are a lot of old thoughts and ideas and things that are floating around that get in the way. So I'm working on that at the same time. And I'm also helping to babysit with our beautiful little granddaughter as we look at the stars and have fun with that. And that just truly warms my heart as well. So those are kind of the key focuses now, Ed. Thank you for asking.
Fascinating. So, Carolina, I don't mean to embarrass you in any way, but I want to tell the audience and the people here with us the video that you put out on LinkedIn the past couple of days.
Was the one.
It was beautiful and very, very informative and helpful to your messaging. And I need to ask you, have you had professional acting lessons?
Not really.
Because it looks like you did, okay? And because it just was like beautifully choreographed. Your makeup, your style, your choice of just a few words to make an impact. And I thought that was nothing that I could never teach that. But I would certainly love to have that in a conversation, perhaps with other women, that we could stage a show that would be helpful to your business. That was dynamite. And it was only like a minute, right? You were right there, and everything was done just right. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Coming from you, directly from Hollywood, this is an honor.
Well, I was fortunate to meet some big shots, people from behind the camera, not in front of the camera. And I got some opportunities at a young age and followed a path. I made some errors in judgment that took me away from that direction. I listened to others who wanted me to do other things and take me in another direction. And then I found my way back to this, as I mentioned to you previously, a few months ago in the show. And
I remember the story.
This is like Nirvana doing this. It's Joseph, this bridge, this imagery is just, I'm awestruck by the messaging.
It's really such a powerful symbol, isn't it? And
Yeah.
from what I understand from listening to neuroscientists, our mind works with images. So when we look to convince people with words, they have far less impact than the visual image. So perhaps we should be sharing this far and wide.
Definitely, it'll be out on my network this weekend. We're doing traveling, going out to Palm Desert, which is a 3.5 hour drive. And then we've got a meeting with the marketing manager, the property manager. And then we have a social thing at 5 o'clock. So I was like, wow, talk about overwhelm. So we got a lot of things going on. And I'll be broadcasting from there on Monday, and then we need to come back. So this building that I'm in right now in downtown San Diego, it was, and I'll be real quick here. This building, this complex that I'm in, the condo, is a block long, city block, full city block long. There's 250 units spread out over, I don't know, I think it's 10 acres or something, right in the middle of the city next to a park. And across the street from the ocean, Seaport Village, they call it. So it's a nice area. So for the first time in like 40 years, the exterior of this complex is being washed and painted and redesigned, and it's going on right now. So we're leaving town to get out of the way, but and then I'll display photos of the finished product because it's looking like it's going to be really beautiful. So before this structure was built in the early 80s, this part of the city was not like I've just described it. It was warehouses. Just across the street was the headquarters for the Navy base during World War II. Aircraft carriers and battleships are just down the street, literally, um, as well as entertainment area and tourist area now. It's quite an interesting area with a history. And even now, San Diego is the headquarters for the Pacific Fleet, and Pentagon West is right down the street here. Give you an idea of the security in the area as well. But at one time during the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, this area was a hodgepodge of rundown warehouses, which during wartime and right after that were valuable places to store stuff off the boats, going to the boats. And then the city fathers and women at the time, people with political power and legal power and money, they got together and they figured out a way how to transform this whole section of downtown. 92101 is the zip code. Now it's surrounded, because you'd never recognize it back then. But right now, this is Government Center. We're across the street from the federal courthouse, the county, which is state, and the city courthouses. And then across the street from all of that, office towers full of lawyers and others connected with the judiciary. Interesting place. So, long story, but and I'll display photos as we go further into the year. This graphic, I'm going to share this graphic, this picture, far and wide, Joseph, with the show, the video as well as the audio. But it's the visual that's going to do it because of this. And having you people in what I call the global meeting room, this is the epitome of my dream. When COVID crashed into my live conference business 5.5 years ago, and then my buddy Paul at the time, a technical advisor, says, you got to go on TV. Stop learning how to get comfortable in front of this green light. And so we did it, cold turkey. And so here we are today, about 1,100 productions later. So LinkedIn has taken a kind look at what I've been doing lately, and they've gotten me involved in advertising for the first time. It's not a lot of money, and they call it a boost, BOOST. In other words, they'll open up their algorithms or do something. They didn't tell me what they're going to do, but they're doing it. And the viewership that they've been measuring has gone from an average, in other words, open the show and look at it, viewership, impressions, they call it, has gone from an average of a couple of thousand a day, which is okay anyway, to like 30,000 almost overnight. And that has turned out to be an onslaught of people wanting to connect with me and from around the world. But mostly it's business people and corporate and a lot of people involved in people management, people HR related things, which is of course gold for my business. So it's like, wow, where'd this come from? And it's because of people like you wanting to come on the show and take a chance in an unscripted environment. A lot of people are afraid of that. And that's been a business problem that I've been wrestling with, because how do I get this program out there? Well, I have to do what I've been doing. There's no other way. And Joseph, your talk today and how you described it, how you framed it, the screenplay, if you will, and then you told the story. That was excellent and very meaningful to me. And I think it will be to the audience. So if you don't mind, I'd like to invite you, I'd like to ask you to think about dreaming that going forward and coming up with the next edition. And how can we mesh what we've done today into something else that's only going to be within you?
Thank you so much, Ed. Yes, I'll certainly be happy to reflect on that and see what emerges.
Yeah. Like some of the people who walked across this bridge and how has it impacted them from that experience of walking across the bridge? That would be an interesting story. I just didn't rehearse this. It just came to me the second, and it never would have come to me without you setting it up and doing it. So thank you. But that would be a winner. That when and if that show ever develops and we find people who can discuss that, that will go far and wide. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Carolina, I'll follow up on those very kind introductions. I have to do a search and find that stuff you sent me, and I'll get right on it. But it might not be today.
Okay. Thank you so much, Edwin.
Right. Thank you, Ken.
Thank
We'll talk
you very
another
much.
time. All right. This is Ed in San Diego. I got to get ready for Philip Berry. He's going to talk about bullying in the workplace starting at the top of the hour. If you want to join, let me know. I'll send you the link. It's free. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be well all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. I'm trying to push the right button here, right? Okay.